Hello learners, I am Dr. Subodh Kesharwani working with Indira Gandhi National Open University in School of Management Studies. The topic which I am going to talk today is the index number. This is a very important topic as far as this particular block is concerned, which focus on trend analysis. We have a very elaborative sessions starting from the correlation, regression, then time series, then there are certain trends which we have talked about like measures of trend, and finally we are land up to the winding of this particular block which focuses on the index number. So prior to going into the depth of this index number, I just want to throw a light that this is part of our course called MCO3, Research Methodology and Statistical Analysis, which is designed or made for the MCOM student, and this is a second year course which focuses more on the research methodology and statistical analysis. We have already covered the good number of sessions focusing on collection of data, research design, research plan, hypothesis, sampling and measurement of scaling and techniques, and a lot of different methodologies which we have taken up, which revolves around the research methodology and statistical analysis. After talking so much about this, the time had come where we are going to apply this methodologies, apply this mathematical the algorithm in our problem solving approach. So the index number is one of the step in this direction. So if you go more into the depth of index number, I think it is a measure that summarizes the change in the level of activity. Either it could be a price or quantity of a single item or a basket of related items from one time period to another. So expressing the value of an item in the period for which the index is calculated as a ratio of its value in the base period. So we know that when we are going to calculate certain index numbers, we take a base year. So base year could be the 10 years back or 5 years back or so. Taking into consideration, then we index a percentage value. So the period of reference of relative to which an index is calculated is known as the base period. So after studying this particular unit, you should be able to know more about the meaning and appreciate the use of index number, identify and avoid various issues faced while developing index numbers for some special purposes, and then discuss the classification of index numbers. And afterwards, once you are able to classify the index numbers, you can apply and calculate index numbers using different methods, describe the limitations of index numbers to avoid errors in interpretation, because how you are going to interpret the things, and if you are going to avoid the errors and extract the foolproof information through interpreting the results, I think that could be one of the important achievement as far as the calculation of index number is concerned. So if you see, I think there are certain goals which are important, like describe the term index, understand the difference between a weighted and an unweighted index, which we are going to discuss in a different sessions under the head called methods of calculation of index numbers, and then construct and interpret a Las Paris price index, construct and interpret a Pascal price index, and construct and interprets a value index. So this is a thing which is going to be quite important, and explain how the consumer price index is constructed and interpreted. So what we are going to discuss, this is more important because index number is a very thought-provoking term. It's a very omnipresent term. We can say in the previous unit, we have discussed the analysis of time series. We have discussed about the measure of trend, and in this particular chapter, the particular presentation, we shall discuss the methods of constructing various types of number of different purposes. So this device is an extension of the time series analysis, because an index number combines two or more time series variables related to non-comparable units. So you would have read in newspaper or heard on the television, or in radio, that the cost of living index has increased by so many points. Hence, for government employees, another slab of DNS allowance has been declared. So this is what? This is, probably you might have wondered what is this cost of living index is. So many of you must also be aware of stock exchange share price index, commonly referred to as BSE index, or more recently, the national stock exchange index, Sensex is there. So in fact, these various types of index series have come to be used in many activities such as industrial production, export, import, or prices, etc. So in this particular presentation, you will study and understand the meaning and use of index numbers, various problems resulting from incorrect use of index numbers, methods of construction of various index numbers and their limitations. Because what we have observed that if we are going to come out from all these the problems, I think we are going to get a very good way of doing the index number. So an index number measures the relative change in price, quantity, value or some other item of interest from one time period to another. And this simple index number measures the relative change in just one variable. And if you go more into the backdrop of meaning and concept of index number, you will find out index number is a measure of change in a variable or a group of variables over time. It's not like that that we are going to measure the change of variables only. There are variables and there are group of variables, a gamut of variables which are coming together. So for this this index number is quite important, because there are certain constraints or the limitations which you are going to follow when you are talking more about the trend analysis. Either you are going to correlate the things, or you are going to apply the regression analysis, or the time series analysis. So index number is somewhat one step ahead to that, and it measures the change in the group of variables, which is a USP of this particular index number. So index numbers are one of the most used statistical tools in economics. Index numbers are not directly measurable but represent general relative changes, and they are typically expressed as percents. So if you go more into the backdrop of index methods, you will find out index numbers are used in measuring change in a set of related variables. Either it could be the consumer prices, stock market prices, quantity produced, or index number can also be used in comparing levels of a set of related variables across space of firms, like agriculture output in two different countries, input index across two farms or firms, price level in different countries. And in general we compute the price index numbers, quantity index numbers, and decompose value ratios into price and quantity index numbers. So this is the important aspect which we are going to follow. And now the question is that what is the index number? Frisch in 1936 had given a very good definition as far as the index number is concerned. According to him, the problem of how to construct an index number is as much of economic theory as of statistical technique. And if you go more to the backdrop of first definition, I think the first definition which focuses on the index number of prices shows the average percentage change of prices from one point of time to another. The percent change in the price of a single product from one time to another is found by dividing its price at a time t by its price in time 0. So if we are denoting the price percentage change with p, it is coming to pt divided by P0. So price relative of commodity in relation to these points in time, and index number of the price of a collection of product is the average of their price relatives. So if we are going to explain this particular definition, I think most people understand what a high cost of living is or what low price mean, but little idea of how the height of the high cost of living or the lowness of the low cost of living is to be measured. So it is measured through magnitudes, that index number we have invented. If all prices move up or down in perfect unison, there would be no need for index numbers. But since in reality the prices of different articles move very differently, then some sort of average or compromise must be used, and this average is the index number. So the definition is based on prices, but in a like manner an index number can be calculated for wages, for quantities of good imported or exported, for quantities produced in the economy. Hence the definition is expressed in terms of time, but can apply the same definition of comparison between two places. But usually index number are used to indicate price movements in time. So if you see this index number, I think an index number is limited to the measure of change in magnitude between one situation to another. The two situations compared are in no way restricted. They may be two time periods or two time situations in a spatial sense. For example, two cities or two or more countries or two group of individuals, 1 and 2% pensioner families are there, which is considered to be one of the examples. So since index number measures changes, they are expressed with one selected situation as 100, and this is called the time reference base of the series of index numbers. So in annual series, for example, the reference base is the year taken with the level of 100 for comparison. In another year, the index number may be 126. This shows an increase of 26 over these 2 years. So there are certain advantages of index number. It is very quite useful to assess exports and imports, helpful in formulation of policies, helpful in measuring inflation and deflation, helpful in knowing the changes in standard of living, useful to businessmen, important device of business world, and quite useful to government in studying changes in trend. So this is very important, and government is, since because the size of the data is quite gigantic in this particular thing, so index number is quite useful methodology while studying the trend as far as the government is concerned, as far as the businessman is concerned, or the country as a whole is concerned, vis-a-vis this inflation and deflation is there. So if you see this particular image, you will find out that how the change in time base can affect the thing. So number of employees in 2017 say 8741, in 2018 is 8727, in 2019 it is 8432, while in 2020 it is 8062. So series with 2000 as 100 we have taken, and the formula what we have applied is 100 divided by 96.5, because 2019 96.5 would be taken as a base period and then multiplied by 100. So series with 2017 as 100 comes to 103.7 for 17, and for 18 it is 103.5, for 2019 it's 100, which has considered to be the base period, and then 2020 is 95.6. So that the changing base is simply an arithmetic switch, so cannot compare employment index of 100 for 2019 with that of 103.7, and it's not a meaningful comparison. So can show that the switching the base does not change the rates of change, and employment fell 3.5% from 2017 to 19 and fell 4.4% from 2017 to 18, regardless of the base year used. So what we have observed that that since we have got 4 years, but we have start comparing with year to year basis. 2017 is compared with 2018, and 2017 is compared with 2019 also. With the base year we have used, and we have compared, and this is the difference which is coming up. So there are certain problems in construction of an index number. So the purpose of construction of index number, if we are talking about, must be rigidly defined. It's not for all purpose, and every index number have a specific use, and if the purpose of construction is not clearly defined, it will be wastage of time and effort. So, and selection of base year. Now the base year must be normal year, that is without abnormalities like war, earthquake, inflation, etc. It should not be very distant from current year, and the base year period should be clearly defined. So while defining the base year, we have to be quite cautious and take into consideration the basic phenomena which is required. So selection of number of items, it refers to collection of data which should be determined by the purpose of which the index number is constructed. Only standardized or graded items should be included so that reasonably standard of accuracy can be maintained. So and on the other hand, some more problems in construction of index number is there, like selection of source of data. And when you are going more into the backdrop of it, you will find out sources of collection of data is decided, and this is done to ensure the reliability of data, which is to ensure that data is reliable and comparable. And as far as price quotation is concerned, we require unbiased price quotation so that adequate accuracy can be maintained. To ensure uniformity, 2 methods of quoting should be adopted. Money prices, price quoted is per unit commodity, and quantity prices, price are quoted per unit of money. This is the thing which we have taken care. And selection of average, index number are specialized averages, and we need to select from various averaged. Median and mode can't be used because of their limitations, and we need to select arithmetic mean or geometric mean. So this is a way, because there are certain outliers is coming. So how you are going to come out from that? So talking more about the problems in construction of index number, I think selection of system of weighing is there. It refers to assigning relative importance to different items, including in the construction of index numbers. And there are 2 types of indices, weighted and unweighted. And we are going to have a very elaborative session which talks more about the methods of calculation of index number. So weighted, all commodities are given equal importance, and unweighted include quality weights. Commodities are given importance according to the amount of quantity, and value weight importance given according to the amount of expenditure. So selection of appropriate formula is there. So how you are going to make selection of formula from Laspere methods, Pasch method or Fisher method are quite important, and we can't depend on one formula, and selection depends upon type and purpose of index number, because the data size is quite high, and if you are going to confine yourself with one selection methods, I think there the issue is there. So the index number problem is quite more, and it reduces all distinct prices for the class of goods in question to a single number, cuts through the noise, thus helps in seeing the picture, hides potential important details. Some prices may be increasing but many others can be decreasing. So different index number, that is different forms of averages, tend to lead to different results. Some of them will register positive changes and other negative, so that different indices may be moving in different directions. So there could not be a thumb rule that we are adhere to this particular methodologies as far as the calculation of index number is concerned. There must be certain methodologies, certain procedures, and we have to be focused on the multiple ways of calculation of index numbers. So use of index numbers. Now they are broad index, it measures the economy price level, changes in the cost of living, helps in measuring GDP, gross domestic product is there, and narrow indexes. So track changes in the price of certain products, helps in guiding investments, stamp page fees and other contracts are there, and there are some important price index are there, like consumer price index, price measures of the cost of living in Mumbai. This is one of the example, based on 400 items including food, housing, clothing, transportation and medical items. Weighted aggregate price index with fixed weight derived from the user survey, published monthly by the PTI. The base period is 2019-2020 with an index of 100, and producer price index. So if you go talk more about the producer price index, it measures the monthly changes in price in primary markets in India, used as a leading indicator of the future trend of consumer prices and the cost of living, covers raw, manufactured and processed goods at each level of processing, includes the output of manufacturing, agriculture, forestry, fishing, mining, gas, electricity and other public utilities, and weighted average of price related using the last pairs method. So some important price index are there, index designed to show price trends and movements of the Bombay Stock Exchange. Another average is computed for 20 transportation stocks and another for 50 utility stocks. So if you go more into the depth of this last pairs and past indices, which we are going to cover in our forthcoming session under the ambit of methods of calculation of index numbers, I think both indices are quotients in which the numerators and denominators are the same of price multiplied by quantities for the items in the basket, and the last pair index numerator is the sum of the current price time base period quantities, and its denominator is the sum of the base prices times base period quantities, and the past index numerator is the sum of the current prices times current period quantities, and its denominator is the sum of the base prices times current period quantity. So quantity changes over time for various reasons. For instance, higher fuel mileage in today's car might translate into fewer purchased gallons per car compared to earlier year. I think we have a very thought-provoking session which give a curtain raiser to index numbers, and in our coming sessions, which could be a way of calculation of index numbers, we will see how the simple average, how the weighted average, or the different kinds of averages are there, which can be monitored and calculated with the help of index numbers. So index number, we have observed that it is one of the important ingredients as far as the calculation of trend is concerned or measurement of trend is concerned, and this is going to be quite pivotal because you can have multiple variables and you can apply the multiple methods into it. So once we are going to talk more about the certain methodologies, we are going to focus more on the calculation of these index numbers with the help of some real life scenarios and real life examples. Thank you very much.